Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bob's Woodshop. Today we have something really special. We're visiting Bob Gary of Take a Dip Tools over at Mr. Sawdust School of Professional Woodworking in Hackettstown, New Jersey. We're going to be demonstrating the use of the Stanley 45. Hey, Bob Gary.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome
Good to see you, pal.
Wally Kunkel's Mr. Sawdust School of Professional Woodworking.
Yeah, very excited to be here today.
Good.
Let's take a quick look around the shop. This is a fantastic shop.
Well, it's a quiet afternoon because we're having classes tonight. So
right.
Everything's ready for our evening classes.
Right. And it's a very well equipped shop. Let's go back up to here. Wally's got a successful business going on here. And Bob, if viewers remember, has a little store back here. And today we're going to be talking about the Stanley 45. So this has been on the books for a couple of weeks now, and I'm really excited to be here. So, all right, Bob, what do you got going today?
Well, today we're talking about the Stanley 45. We're going to demonstrate its use for making a lot of different molding cuts. One of the things that people always ask is, why is this plane so complex? Well, this was a plane that actually was taking the place of a lot of other wooden molding planes. Mm-hmm. So if you look over here, you can see some of those planes. This is a set of tongue and groove planes. And so this one would cut the groove, and this one would cut the tongue, as you can see from the ends. And so the Stanley 45 can also do tongue and groove. These are some beading planes. And you might have about, in a set, maybe 7 or 8 beading planes going anywhere from 3/4 down to 1/4 or 1/8 of a bead. Right. And so, again, the Stanley 45 was made to replace these different size beading planes.
What's the date on planes like this?
Well,
these were made in the 18 and 1900s?
Yes, these go back to the 1700s.
Okay.
And 1800s. Usually by the Depression, by 1930, they stopped making these. Mm-hmm. Many companies had stopped even around 1900. But definitely by the Depression, these kind of went out of favor for the metallic planes.
Right. So it just became very heavy and bulky for carpenters to carry all the stuff around with them.
To carry all of these in place of carrying one plane with just the cutters.
Sure.
This is your sash plane for doing window work. So that cuts your sash molding.
Yeah.
And one of the more respectable planes out of all the wooden ones is your plow planes. And a plow plane like this one's a D.R. Barton, made in Rochester, New York. It would come with a set of cutters. Usually around 7 cutters would come with this. And this is just for plowing a groove.
Right.
This would just fit up in here with the wedge. And this one has threaded arms that can adjust the fence over here for how far from the edge of the piece of wood you want it to make your groove. Again, this is what the Stanley 45 can do. And if you just use the Stanley 45 only for plowing, it'll make its keep because it's a really good plow plane. But then when you get into beading, tongue and groove, sash work, then you're covering a big complement of all different kinds of moldings. Mm-hmm. That's what we're going to do today.
Okay, so let's get started.
This is a Stanley 45 from around, I would say, 1920s, 1930s vintage. Matter of fact, I can tell you it's 1920s to early 1930s because it has the Stanley Sweetheart logo on the cutters. These are 2 boxes of cutters that it comes with.
Yeah.
And you can see on this box, it has the plow plane blades. And so it goes from 1 1/4 down to 1/8 inch. Then in the other box up on top, you have your beading cutters here and some more beading cutters on this side. You have your sash cutter right here, and you have your tongue and groove here and here. Mm-hmm. And these little pieces right on the inside are for setting your depth for using those kind of cutters.
And this is just 2 of a whole bunch of different other types, or
well, with the Stanley 45, this is the standard kit that would have came during this era. Mm-hmm. The earlier planes, going back to the 1880s and 1890s, would have had less cutters.
Oh, okay.
They got more cutters as time went on. But these are your basic cutters that you want to use, or your plow, your beads, your tongue and groove, and sash work.
Okay.
Right? And that's what we're going to work with today. Usually they come in a wooden box, and there's some extra parts in the wooden box. I know there's some long arms here, there's a cam rest, there's a slitter way down the side here for doing veneer work and for slitting. Maybe you want to slit a bead off to put on a piece of molding. You have your beading depth stop. This is a homemade box that I made because the original boxes you couldn't put the Stanley 45 in the box all assembled, and so I wanted to have the box made big enough so that I could go ahead and put the cutters and the Stanley plane in there when it's all together and close it up and keep it safe that way.
Yeah, I guess everybody viewing this video knows these are very collectible. What are these currently selling for?
I would say averaging around, in this condition, all there, around $200.
Yeah, okay.
But it could go from $175 to $250, depending on condition and completeness of what you have. And of course, the original box too, adds it for the collector.
Okay.
All right, well, let's get started and try something out.
Yeah, what's the overview? What do we want to do today?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is what I think the Stanley 45 is the best for, is for plowing grooves.
Okay.
And so we're just going to get a piece of wood here, and we're going to practice plowing some grooves in it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this one over. Put this in here. We'll take out of here our 1/4-inch cutter. And we'll put that into the plane. We'll cut a 1/4-inch groove right down the center of that piece of wood.
So those of you who have not seen the other video on the tool collection that Bob has in here, I'm going to leave a link at the back of this video, and he goes through a 40-minute discussion about all the tools he hears, and that's been my most popular video so far in the last year, and it's a terrific tool collection. So at the end of this video, please click on that link. Go.
Okay, so we have our 1/4-inch cutter. What we're going to do is to put it into the slot right here. There's a slot that it fits into. It has a little tab on this piece here that the slitter fits into. There's little notches on the cutter, and we'll be seeing that more and more as we go with our different cutters, and that can adjust your depth up and down. Once that's in there, press against it firmly and then tighten this part up.
Okay, so that looks just like a regular little chisel. So you just sharpen that with regular sharpening tools. That's all it really is.
That's
right?
all a plane is. Basically, a plane is a device that's going to hold a chisel blade.
Okay.
That's what we're working with here.
Right.
I'm going to bring in my auxiliary fence right here, and I'll get it at this point. I'll tighten this up, is my auxiliary fence. And then I want to adjust my depth up and down until the blade is just protruding out. So I'm sighting down, these are called the skates. I'll sight down the skates and go ahead and adjust my depth. And a little bit more. Okay, and that's coming out pretty good. Get that set up in there.
Let me do a close-up right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tighten that up. And so the blade is just sticking below the skates. And what I want to do is to cut that in the center of this piece of wood for my tongue and groove later on, which will cut the other part. Right now I'm going to cut the groove. So I'll get my fence, slide that on the, then I'm going to line this up right about into the center. That looks pretty good right there. I could measure this and get that exact and put some marks on it, but for right now, for the demonstration, eyeballing,
It looks pretty good.
will work,
It looks
will
very
work
close.
for us. Yeah.
You got to come out a little bit this way.
Okay. Right there, I think
Yeah,
it'll
yep,
we'll
that's
do the job. Okay. So I make sure everything is tight. You don't want anything to come loose after you start cutting. Everything is tight, and I'm ready to go now. So the main thing is to hold the fence of the plane up against the piece of wood. That's what you're doing with your front hand, and then the back hand, I hold it like I would a saw. Put my finger on the side right here.
Okay.
Start in the back and push it right on through. Bring it out and just keep on going deeper and deeper until I get my groove as deep as I want. Now what I didn't do is set my depth. Okay, so right here is my depth. And what I'll do is I'll set my depth for how far down I want to go. Tighten that up. And my little screwdriver that usually comes with the Stanley 45 will tighten that up. Now I'm ready to go back and make sure that I'm not going to go too deep.
beautifully.
And there we go. And so now we have our groove cut, and then you can do this with any thickness of wood, any width of blade. We'll do the same thing with a wider blade. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the edge of the piece of wood. So what I'll do is loosen my blade up, take the blade out, and I'll get a wider blade out of here. That's a 7/8 blade. Here's the little notch that's going to fit into my depth set, which is on here. So I'll put that in there.
It's a really clever piece of engineering for sure. That's I love these things. Yeah, a lot of different parts, and they're all very well designed and engineered.
Okay, we can slide that right in there. Put that right in the notch right there.
The notch is fitting on this screw here?
Yeah, right there. That's fitting in there now. So
Okay.
now when I turn this, that notch
That's moving up and down.
has the pin in it that's going to push that up and down.
Okay.
I'll move this over for how much I want to cut off the edge of the piece of wood. I'll get my piece of wood and bring it over here. Set it up. Put a little dog in there. Actually, piece of wood. There we go. Let that hang over the edge a little bit. Tighten that up. Bring this back and say, okay, I want to cut.
Okay, so we're cutting a rabbit now.
Yeah,
Okay.
along I call it a groove along the edge.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? A lot of times I always think of a rabbit and the data was being across the grain.
Yeah, yep.
Get that fence thing. There we go. You can tighten that blade up a little bit, tighten these up. Tighten that up, and then I'll get my fence. I like there's two different holes to put it in. I put it into the top hole. What that does is allow the fence to go under the cutter. And so that way, I'm not going to cut the full width. And the fence now is partially under, as you can see here, the fence is under part of the cutter. But what's sticking out from the fence is what I'm going to cut. Okay, so starting on here, nice.
Wow. Beautiful shaving.
That's one of the keys about
Well,
using this plane is to have everything sharp. I could probably go a tiny bit.
that's woodworking in general.
Oh, definitely.
Sharp
Chisels and
tools are
saws.
safer and easier to use.
Yep.
And actually, it's pretty fast too.
Well,
It's going down there pretty quick.
Good job. Keeping that plane fence up against the side is one of the critical parts of what you're doing. And also keeping the plane
From racking, yeah.
up and down straight.
Yeah, keep it perpendicular, yeah.
And there's no rush. Then we have our groove cut into the piece of wood. See, it makes a nice groove all the way down.
Yep.
Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is the same idea as plowing a groove. We're going to go across the grain this time, which is called a rabbit joint. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and do it on the other end of this piece of wood. I'm going to leave the same blade in there because again, I'm going and doing a plow cut, but across the grain.
Okay.
The particular thing about this is that because we're going across the grain, we want to score the piece of wood in front of our cut with a nicker. And that's what the Stanley 45 has, is for normal use, the nicker does not stick out the bottom. What we're going to do is take it and turn it. Right. We're going to take the screw out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And we're going to turn that so that the little knife edge of the nicker will stick out. And watch this screw. It's very easy to lose that screw. You don't want that to fall.
Yeah, tiny little thing.
Yeah, you don't want that to fall on the ground.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to fall that in the shavings.
Okay, let's fold that right out. And it's sharpened up, ready to go.
And put it down here.
You can see it has a bevel edge right on that side right there.
Okay.
So there's a bevel edge right on that.
Yep.
Sharpened up.
Yeah.
And just sharpen it with a small stone. That's all that's necessary. That's going to stick out now below the skate. Put that screw back on there. A lot of times I just turn it by hand just to get it started. Okay, so now what that does is that's little nicker right there that's sticking below the cutter is also in line with the edge of the cutter. So that's going to score the wood in front of our cutter.
Yep.
So that way we don't get the tear out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a critical thing on this.
But those engineers at Stanley were clever boys.
They were.
Yeah.
Now, the problem you still have though is when I'm going across the piece of wood, is I'm going this way, I'm going to cut across here. A lot of times it'll still chip off the end. And so what do you do to stop that chipping? Take another piece of wood and put it there.
Use a backer board.
Right. So what I want to do is have a piece of wood right up against it like that.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this around. We're going to put this piece of wood on there. And we'll line that up. Whoops, get this here. Good. Use a little mallet. Okay, that's ready to cut now. Okay, so everything I'm going to leave the same way as I did before. Right, I didn't change anything except for that nicker. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it back to me and let that nicker score it. So now you can see a score mark in there.
Yeah.
So when I go forward, it's not going to tear out. Again, let's get our depth set. Make sure we don't go too deep.
Yeah, gonna go for 1/4 inch.
Tighten that up and come back in there. And there we go. As you can see here, it's a nice clean cut right there because we had that backer piece on there. Don't want to take it off.
Yeah.
It's a nice crisp edge on there.
Yep.
And again, holding that piece of that plow plane fence up against here, it's a nice sharp 90-degree corner in there.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the rabbit cut going across the end. Right?
What's next?
Well, the next thing we're going to do is we already cut a nice groove in a piece of wood. How about cutting a tongue in a piece of wood to fit into there? Okay, and I got a piece of wood here for that. Okay, so at this point here, we're taking our cutter out that will then cut the tongue that sticks up. And that's what this one's going to do.
Okay.
I'll put that again right back in the same location, locking it into that depth notch right there. And once that's in there, I can just tighten up a tiny bit just to get the parts all together. I'll bring my auxiliary fence over and get the skate just under that edge. What that's doing is this skate right here is supporting that edge. It also helps me that this doesn't go too deep by tilting it either way. I can move it in a tiny bit more. It gives it a little more support. And I'll tighten these up good and tight so they don't move on me. And then we have our fence that will move over. And again, you were saying, can I match up this here? Well, what I could do is
And just
very
offset the
easily
blade, yeah.
just take this and say, okay, right there and right there is where I want to cut in that
Yeah.
spot.
Okay.
So then with the fence right here,
Yeah, all right, that makes sense.
I can match that up. Oops, my cutter's too far down, so my cutter's not lining up right, so I gotta loosen this up. There we go. My cutter is too far down. Okay, gonna bring that fence in a little more. One of the nice things about this fence on the newer versions, the older versions of the Stanley plane didn't have it. This has a micro adjustment right here for the fence. And so by turning this knob, I can move the fence in a little bit more. There, I want to get that final adjustment just like I want for cutting that groove in the right spot. There's a little gap in here I can see because it moved that fence over. Okay?
Yep.
So at that point I'm ready. I'll tighten up everything there. Tighten that up, tighten that up, tighten that up, and that. And of course, my depth looks like I'm all ready to go.
Do we gotta take the knicker out?
You know what? It wouldn't hurt. We should take the knicker out. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay, so I think we're all set now. Everything is tight. Lined it up. And we're on a roll. Okay, I think we lined it up pretty good.
Yes, we did.
Okay, we could definitely go a little deeper if we want to. I just wanted to see how the alignment looked. Put that back in there. Some of that off of there. Okay. Oops. And I get it right. I get it right. There we go. I think go the other way. Yeah. So you can see there the tongue and groove.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
That's good. A lot of times for drawers that works really nice as well, besides just joining the wood together.
Okay, Bob, what's next?
Okay, next thing we're going to do is your beading. And you'll see beading a lot of times on picture frames. You'll see beading on furniture. You could do a single bead on the edge. You could do one in the center. You could even do multiple beads next to each other. We're going to do a single bead on the edge. And so put my cutter in there and line it all up. Get my auxiliary fence and bring that in. And not to have it too far over. I don't want it to get in the way of the actual cutter itself. Okay, adjust my depth a little bit back. Maybe a little bit more.
Let's take a close up of that.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And I can always, if I need to adjust the depth a little more of the cutter, I can. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust my depth stop down. And what I want to do is get the depth stop, the distance here, I'm trying to equal the curve right there.
Yeah.
And if I go too far, it's better, too far down is better than not going far enough, because I can always adjust it a little bit later on.
Right.
But I'm thinking right about there, it looks like.
Now I'm thinking for the amount of time that you're doing this, it's probably a little faster than setting up my router.
It doesn't take a long time when you do it quite a few times.
Right.
Okay, I'm thinking this looks pretty good. I'm gonna leave that right there and tighten my fence up. That fence, auxiliary fence, cutter, okay. And see if I've got the depth right.
Oh, it's one of my favorite sounds right there.
Nice and smooth.
Yeah.
You'll see it's taking these nice, the part of the bead that's in the center of the piece of wood, it's cutting and it'll get thicker and thicker as I go deeper and deeper into that roundness of that bead right there. And again, real important, just line it up. I want to make sure that these pieces of wood aren't getting in the way here. And I'm starting to get my round there pretty good, but usually it's the beginning that I gotta go back a little bit at. That's pretty good. And I want a little too deep. Clean that up a little. There we go. And so I have that little bit of a round bead in there now. Usually I just take a little bit of sandpaper and I touch that up and that works out good. We'll try another one here. I'm gonna try a little.
Another cutter or a different?
I'm gonna try going in the center of this piece of wood this time. Which just means I gotta move my fence over a little bit. Oh, you know, I should use a wider piece of wood. It'll need a little bit more. There we go. That's what I want to use. We'll put one right in the middle of this. We're close to the middle. Just in. Oh, you know what? That's a nice spot right there. Not in the center, just close to the edge, but not on the edge.
I love the smell of pine in the morning.
A little bit deeper. Try that. Now, one of the things I can feel is that my fence over here is very tight when I push through. And sometimes the fence might not be parallel perfectly. So I want to just loose up the back a little bit and just kind of pull that out some and tighten that back up because it was getting very tight on me. Now, there's sometimes a problem with the fences. Get some of that out of there. I can still see some flat in here.
Yeah.
Got the curve at the end, but not here.
You gotta adjust the depth gauge on it.
Yeah, a little bit more to get the flat out of here.
Is the depth gauge adjustment?
I might need to bring that up a little bit. You're right.
Yep. Well, that's the way you want to do it. You'd rather be not enough and too much.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They can always
Always go down.
always adjust it.
Yep.
There we go. And I like that nice little bead there. We could do another bead on the end if we wanted to. But it's just a decorative. You can put two beads in next to each other.
Yeah, beautiful. That came out nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, I think that one of the next cuts that we'll do for molding will be sash work for windows. And that's what this cutter is right here. It has this part right here, which is like a plow, and that's going to plow a groove in the piece of wood along the edge. This is a molding cut on this side, and this is our depth stop right in the middle, okay? And a window would use many pieces of sash, and we're just going to cut one sash molding. Okay, we'll put that in there, lock it in, and again, slide our secondary fence over. And we'll lock that in. I might push that that a little bit further in. That helps to support the blade and the depth of cut as well. And so you can see how I have that set up, where this is right in between the plow blade
Oh,
to
it's getting
support that.
on the skate. Yeah, okay.
And this one here is in a little bit from the edge of that molding also. And that gives you support for your depth as well as giving the blade support.
Okay.
And then our depth is set up with that. As far as where it's going to be cut, we'll bring our fence in. I'm just adjusting this by eye at this point. Looser, looser. To try and get the tongue that sticks up right about in the middle with a nice molding that will be on the inside, or actually the molding part is on the outside of the window and the groove is on the on the inside. I think I'm ready to try this out. Oh, I think I'm going a little too deep, so I'm going to pull this back and not take as aggressive a cut, and that's really critical. I'm going to pull this way back, okay, and then go deeper if I need to. Okay, so I need to go a little deeper. There we go. Now what I'm cutting is my plow on this side, and on this side will be my molding.
Right.
The molding will be on the outside of the window, and the plow is on the inside. Now you see over here, I'm really kind of a little bit deeper, and a lot of times that happens, so I'm going to just focus. There we go. Now I'm getting a little bit of chipping here, which tells me I probably should have looked at my grain closer. If I went the other direction, I might not have got it much, but I could probably just lighten up the depth of my cut a little. There we go. Okay, now what I have is my window will go in here, and then I will have glazing on the inside.
Yeah.
And the molding will be on the outside.
Yeah.
So there's my sash right there.
That quick.
Okay, as compared to the old days, there's the same idea there. There's a little different sash profile.
Yeah.
Similar to the Stanley 45 sash is the old-fashioned wooden molding plane. That's also sash work. Here's your cutters right in there. Of course, the cutters aren't going to cut yet. So what I need to do is kind of use my little hammer here and tap them down a little bit. Okay, now the wedge is secured. There's an integral fence right there. I just locked it into the side.
So now we're going real old school.
I smell the wood. Smell that.
Oh yeah. Wait, it's like burning it.
Yeah, you can smell that. And sometimes also the fibers do get caught in here, and you'll see a lot of times little knife marks where they go in there to get these fibers out of there, these shavings out. You don't want those clogging it up. Okay, we'll go back.
Okay. So we were getting a lot of heat and friction there, so we're just
A little paste wax.
cleaning it up a little bit and putting little Johnsons on there.
Yeah, you could do the same thing with a metal plane. The metal
sure.
planes
Yeah,
work
absolutely.
great with a little bit of wax on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go back and This thing is going to fly, so watch out. I'm going to run right into you, Bob. I could go a little deeper. Sometimes it might. I think that they're backing out. Okay, now I'm deep. For some reason I'm getting really good here and really good there, and I'm just not getting that middle as deep as I would like. I got a lot of shavings caught in there. Take those shavings out. This thing I can focus on the middle a little bit. I'm getting it, but I'll tell you what, the Stanley 45 is easier.
Yeah.
The Stanley 45, clogging up here on me.
Yeah.
A lot of.
Those are good innovation. Yeah, there's a little bit more finicky with this the woodwork. Yeah.
And I probably could have sharpened the blades up before we started.
Mm-hmm.
That probably would have helped me out. And that's the Stanley 45. You're going to see that you can use it as a plow plane. You can use it for rabbiting, datoing. You can use it for tongue and groove, for sash work, and for beading. It comes with these sets of cutters right here. You can get other cutters also that were supplied later on.
Yeah.
But I think as far as an investment, and it's an easy learning curve. You try it out for a while. Once you master the plowing, then you try the beading, then you can try some tongue and groove work, and you'll see that it's enjoyable, it's a good workout, and it's a good investment for your woodworking journey.
So you sell these through your store here and on your online eBay store, right?
Right.
All right. So do you have any currently for sale?
I do have some Stanley 45s for sale.
Okay.
And again, the price is right around $200.
Right. And you have, like we showed before, you've got a wide selection of all types of woodwork.
What you want to see is...
Yeah, let's take a quick look in
Let's
here.
look at the one that's a little more complex. Well, here's the monster of them all. Once you master the Stanley 45, then you graduate to the Stanley 55.
Oh, that's the aircraft carrier. Jesus.
That is. And this one, where the other one had 2 boxes of cutters, this one has 4 boxes of cutters.
Let's take this out in the light.
So that's the Stanley 45, and when you master the Stanley 45, then you graduate to the Stanley 55. This is the most complex plane ever made in the world, okay? It has 2 fences on it. It has the height over here as far as this tower setting up on it, has the cam in it, auxiliary fence, all the bells and whistles, and where you have 2 boxes of cutters that come with the 45, there's actually lined up here for 4 boxes of different cutters. And so you have a lot of more molding cutters, hollows and rounds, and all kind of OGs and all different kind of cutters that match up to the different moldings that would have been around with the wooden molding planes back in the 1800s. Again, not a plane that can't be used by the woodworker, but I would definitely start with the Stanley 45 first.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Bob.
You're welcome.
Very, very nice trip down memory lane, and thank you for the opportunity to come over here today and as for the demonstration. Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I hope you liked that video. Bob and I had a fantastic time this afternoon demonstrating that and filming it. This is certainly one fantastic piece of engineering. Here's a few shots of the school and Bob's collection. And here's a few more shots of Bob's collection. And like I said, at the end of this video, I'm going to have a link to see the details of Bob's shop, and certainly one that you would want to take a look at. So I imagine if you got this far into the video, you're really interested in antique tools. Bob's got a huge selection in this School of Professional Woodworking owned by Mr. Wally Kunkel. And if you need to get a hold of him, you can contact him on his email address or on his website. And here he is again, Bob Gary, Take a Dip Vintage Tools. And here's the information for Mr. Sawdust School. So until next time, I'll see you on another episode of Bob's Woodshop. And don't forget, please like, comment, and subscribe.